Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're very excited to have everyone here today for our weekly OCI deep dive. For those of you who may be new to our events, we are hosted on the Cloud Customer Connect, which is an Oracle community forums for end users. My name is Catherine Jennings. I'm with the OCI Observability and Management Organization. And today we're joined by Aaron Reimel, Principal Product Manager, and Anna McCullum, Senior Director Product Manager, to take us through Stack Monitoring Get to Know Enterprise Edition. That's enough for me, Aaron. Go ahead and take it away.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. Hello, and thank you for joining us for Get to Know Stack Monitoring's new Enterprise Edition. As Catherine mentioned, I'm Aaron Reimel. We have Anna McCullum here. We're product managers in Oracle's Observability and Management Group. In this presentation, we're excited to introduce Stack Monitoring's Enterprise Edition. Our Enterprise Edition will provide a new set of features meant to address advanced monitoring use cases. We'll discuss some of our initial set of features in the Enterprise Edition in this presentation. So a quick review of our agenda. I'm going to briefly review the Stack Monitoring Service so everybody's up to speed and understands the Stack Monitoring Service. We'll spend the majority of our time reviewing the exciting initial set of features that are included in the Enterprise Edition. And finally, we'll review how to enable the Enterprise Edition on your resources. With that said, let's get started. So Stack Monitoring lets you proactively monitor an application and its underlying application stack. That includes its application servers, databases, and hosts. You can easily set up monitoring in just a few minutes, leveraging our single-click Discovery UI that discovers a complete application stack and its topology. We have native out-of-the-box support for applications including EBS and PeopleSoft, application stack technologies like WebLogic Server, SOA, OHS, and Tomcat, just to name a few. Support for database monitoring includes Oracle Database Systems and SQL Server. Host monitoring includes support for Linux, Windows, and Solaris. We provide a curated set of metrics for each of these resource types and built-in monitoring UIs to allow you to quickly monitor after discovery. One of our key monitoring UIs is called the Stack View. The Stack View enables quick assessment of an application's health, such as EBS or PeopleSoft, showing an application's key load and response metrics, performance and utilization metrics from its app server, database, and hosts, all in a single view. Alarms is an important part of monitoring, and we offer best practice recommendations for alarm setup to help avoid outages and those performance issues. And finally, Stack Monitoring can monitor your resources across your hybrid environment. So whether it's running an OCI, on-premise, or another cloud provider. And all of these features are included in what is now referred to as Stack Monitoring Standard Edition. So introducing the Stack Monitoring Enterprise Edition, why we're all here. The Stack Monitoring Enterprise Edition builds on the current set of core features offered within Stack Monitoring Standard Edition. The Stack Monitoring Enterprise Edition provides those advanced monitoring capabilities required for monitoring your mission-critical applications. Extensible monitoring. With the wide variety of applications and technology stack, we know ops teams often have requirements to monitor conditions specific to their environment. Extensible monitoring is about supporting the ability to add custom metrics and monitor anything outside the built-in types while still leveraging all of the collection mechanisms and monitoring UIs that Stack Monitoring provides. Smarter monitoring. This is about providing insights. An example would be technologies such as machine learning to provide insights into performance issues. Is the behavior expected? Is it anomalous? Can I correlate this event with something else that's happening in the application stack? Scalable monitoring. This focuses on features that eliminate repetitive monitoring tasks, often required as an enterprise grows. So let's talk about our initial set of features, beginning with metric extensions. Metric extensions extend the out-of-the-box metric set provided by Stack Monitoring to meet the use cases required when monitoring unique IT environments. For example, in my previous life as a DBA, what feels like generations ago, I frequently leveraged custom metrics to meet unique business requirements. One example is a proactive measure. We have a set of DBMS jobs, and they should be on. So we had a set of DBMS jobs that needed to be executed and needed to be executed on a certain schedule. So I leveraged custom metrics to alert me if any database has a job that's not scheduled or running on that specific cadence. And using metric extensions such as this significantly reduced my time checking if my jobs are running as expected and allowing me to spend more time improving the performance. And this is just one example of a unique business requirement that was met using custom metrics. So I'll provide a demonstration on how to create a metric extension here shortly, but I want to first review the process of how to do it. So metric extensions, they leverage the collection methods by resource type. So for example, SQL for Oracle Database or JMX for WebLogic. And it's easy to get started using the fill in the blank UI. You begin by choosing a resource type, then a collection method and a collection frequency. Then you supply the command or the script to be executed. And the output of the metric is organized into dimensions and metrics. A dimension is a qualifier of a metric. So if we use file system utilization to describe dimensions and metrics, the dimension is the file system name, like UO1. And the metric is the utilization part, 90% utilized. A metric must be numeric. And metric extensions leverage the monitoring credentials that were provided when the resource was first discovered. For example, if I'm discovering an Oracle Container DB, if I use the DBSNMP user during discovery, then the DBSNMP user will be used when collecting the metric extension. The metric data collected is stored in OCI monitoring, and this allows you to create alarms against these metrics. And the metric extension charts will automatically be added to any resource homepage once it's enabled. Metric extensions can also be added to the enterprise summary and dashboards. So let's take a look at how you can create and use a metric extension. The first step is to define the metric extension. So to create a metric extension, we'll first begin by defining the metric query or script to be used. Next, using the UI, we'll specify a name, resource type, collection method, script, and other details I described earlier. And once a metric extension has been defined, it's time to create and test that metric extension. Creating a metric extension saves the metric. And from this point, you can continue to develop that metric, or you can, return later and continue where you left off. It's important to always test a metric extension against a non-production resource. And during this phase, the metric is deployed to the management agent, and the command is executed. The results are then sent to OCI and retrieved for display in the UI. During the test phase, you would review the results of your metric extension. If you're unsatisfied with the results, you can continue to edit that command or update the script, and then retest that metric extension on the same resource or a different resource, but always remembering to test against a non-production resource. Once you're satisfied with the results, it's time to publish the metric extension. A published metric extension is ready for general consumption. And as a result, the metric can no longer be edited. Enabling the metric on resources is the final step. And when enabling the metric on a resource, the metric extension will be pushed to the management agent and immediately begin collecting metric data. Stack Monitoring will automatically show the metric extension charts on the resource's homepage, and alarms can be configured. So let's see how it's done. So to create a metric extension, we'll first begin by navigating to the metric extensions page And then we'll click Create Metric Extension. This slide out will help guide us through that process of creating a metric extension. First, we'll enter the name, DB wait time, and a display name. Next, we can provide a description, but since this is a demonstration, I'll skip that. And from the dropdown, we'll select the resource type of non-container DB and the collection method of SQL. Now let's update the collection frequency from 15 minutes to, let's use 5 minutes. Okay. And for the SQL query, we can either type the query in this box provided, or we can upload a SQL file. So let's go ahead and upload a SQL file. First, we'll click the radio button to enable that feature, and then we'll drop our SQL file in here. And with the SQL file uploaded, it's now time to define those metrics and dimensions we discussed earlier. Our script returns 3 columns: instance name, wait class, and wait time. So we'll define each of those 3 columns. Scroll down. All right, so first we'll provide a name and a display name. Instance name, instance name. All right, and the instance name is a dimension, and it has a value of string. So is a dimension, and it's a string. So we'll add another dimension. We'll once again provide a name, class, and a display name. And just as before, wait class is a dimension, and it does have a value of string. All right, so now it's time to define the metric portion of the column, the numeric, right? So we click Add Metric. All right. Here we'll enter the DB wait time for the name and the display name. And this time it's not a dimension. This is a metric, right? So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to give it a unit of seconds, right? And with the metric and the dimensions now defined, it's time to create and test this metric extension. So we'll come down here, we'll click Create and Test. All right, and we can see our metric extension has been successfully created. And so to test this, we're going to pick a resource from the dropdown. And now we will test. All right. And testing a metric extension can take a few minutes. But once the test completes, the results are displayed. Here we can see the wait times of each database instance name, the corresponding wait class. And if we're unsatisfied with these results, like we discussed earlier, we can come in and we can update the query and then retest this until we're happy with the results. But these results look good, so we'll go ahead and publish this metric. All right. So this pop-up is a check to ensure that you wish to publish the metric. Because remember, once the metric is published, it cannot be edited. So this is the point of no return here. So we'll go ahead and we'll publish our metric. All right. So our metric has been published, as we can see up here and here as well. Okay, with the metric published, let's now enable the metric on an Oracle database. So we'll come over here and we'll hit the action button and click enable. All right. So from here, from this page, we're going to go ahead and select the resources. And as you can see, you can select from 1 to many. But since metric extensions require an Enterprise Edition license, only those databases that have an enterprise license are shown on this page and are allowed to have a metric extension deployed to it. So now we'll choose an Oracle database and click on selected resource. Click that, enable on selected resource. All right. And then we'll see. And then now we're being asked that we want to make sure, we're being asked if we do want to enable this metric extension on this resource. We will click enable. All right. And once again, this process can take a few minutes. All right. So it's successful. our metric extension has been enabled on our resource. So we'll close the page. And then here we can see our metric extension has been enabled on one resource. If we had done this on 5, 10, 15, 100, whatever it is, clicking on this number will display a list of resources where your metric extension has been enabled. And then clicking on the resource name will once again take you to that resources homepage. All right, let's return to the presentation. The second feature we're going to discuss today is baselines and anomalies. For key performance metrics, Stack Monitoring will automatically calculate its baseline behavior using machine learning algorithms. Baselines are the expected range of values for the metric. If a metric is outside of the baseline, this will be flagged as anomalous in our charts, and it'll help you easily identify if a behavior is different and could be the sign of a potential problem. The home page on this chart highlights several anomalous metrics. We can easily identify these points indicated by the orange data point in the charts. Hovering over the data point, Stack Monitoring will provide that expected range of values to give you that context, like how far outside of the baseline your resource is performing. Now, Stack Monitoring requires at least 2 hours of metric data to be able to calculate those baselines. And these values become more accurate over time as more data is ingested. So the third feature we're going to discuss today is application stack extensibility. Stack Monitoring allows for this single-click discovery of an entire EBS application stack, right? We discussed this as part of the standard edition features. And this discovery automatically creates the application topology or associations between components of that application. And this topology can then be used to understand the overall health of an application and provide that navigation across the application stack. However, like many applications, let's use EBS for example. An EBS application stack is more than just a concurrent manager and WebLogic servers and an Oracle database. Stack Monitoring's extensibility features allow for monitoring from other services to be consolidated by importing those resources into Stack Monitoring. Importing resources into Stack Monitoring allows for the application's topology to be completed by creating associations between the imported resource and the existing Stack Monitoring resources. This reduces troubleshooting time by providing access to all resources and their availability and performance metrics of the entire application stack. And now this can include your OCI load balancer, your application servers, databases, and even storage, all in just a single place. And once a resource has been imported, Stack Monitoring will create that homepage with availability and performance metrics. It'll show configuration details and report any open alarms. So let's see how to import an OCI load balancer into Stack Monitoring. So in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to enhance an EBS applications topology. We're going to do it by importing an OCI load balancer that services the WebLogic Oracle Applications Fusion Middleware Cluster, or OAFM. So let's begin. To import the OCI load balancer, we're going to begin by navigating to the Import Resources page. And then we'll click Import Resources. So once again, this slide out helps guide us through the process. This time to import resources into Stack Monitoring. And importing is easy. Simply select the OCI namespace that contains the resource you wish to import. And this is a list of those OCI resources that can be imported into Stack Monitoring. So to import an OCI load balancer from this list, we're going to select OCI LBAAS. Now you'll notice the request name. This is automatically populated for you. You don't have to do anything. It's used to help track the progress of the work request and give you an idea, as you'll see in the end, what resources were imported. So you can use the name that's given here, or you can override it if you choose. All right, so the load balancers that we're importing here, they're going to be production load balancers. So let's assign an environment tag, those best practices that we got to get in a habit of. Let's go ahead and label this as a production load balancer. And then we'll add our tag. All right. And then to submit the import request, we'll simply click import resources. Once again, we picked a namespace. This automatically did it, and we did some best practices. It's just a couple clicks. All right, so we see that our job has been accepted and is now in progress. All right, perfect. Our job has succeeded. So clicking the work request name, this is going to give us that context of what load balancers were imported as part of this process. Okay, so here we can see 2 load balancers have been imported. And then clicking a resource's name will once again navigate us to that resource's homepage. So we'll click and load top on the list here. All right. So once that import task completes, Stack Monitoring creates a homepage, and it provides us those details into the availability, health, and performance of the load balancer. We can come in here and we can look at those performance charts just like all of our other resources. And we can see that that metric data is already being published. So with that said, let's go enhance that EBS topology by creating the relationship between that OAFM WebLogic cluster and our imported load balancer. So we'll go over and we'll say, so click related resources. And now we'll click add related resource. Once again, we've got our slide out here where we'll begin by selecting the relationship. So from the dropdown, this WebLogic cluster is used. Okay, this load balancer is used by the WebLogic OAFM cluster. So we're going to choose used by, and then the WebLogic cluster. And this is a list of all of the WebLogic clusters in my monitored environment. I get it, it's a demo environment. I don't have very many, but this is my entire list. So we'll go ahead and choose the OAFM WebLogic cluster and click Add Resource. All right, we can now see that this load balancer is used by this WebLogic cluster. So now with that relationship created, let's go ahead and add a relationship between the load balancer and the EBS application just for easy access. So we'll come in here and click Add Related Resource. Once again, it's used by. This time we'll choose EBS instance. And I only have one, so that makes that easy. And we'll click Add Resource. All right, so we've successfully imported an OCI load balancer into Stack Monitoring. We've enhanced our EBS application topology by then relating that load balancer to the OAFM cluster and the EBS application. And using the Stack Monitoring homepage here, you can now determine if that load balancer is down or performing poorly. You can use this related resource page to quickly identify what service or services is being impacted by the poor performance of this load balancer. So in our example here, if we identify that performance is poor for our EBS prod SLB, had I named it something different, right, like something more ephemeral, then we can easily identify, which that it is this OAFM WebLogic cluster and the exact EBS application that it's related to. So let's review how we can see this load balancer now from the EBS homepage. So as we did before, clicking a resource's name takes us to that homepage. All right. So here we have the overall status of the EBS. We've got our EBS homepage and a roll-up of all of our alarms that are coming in. And we also have a count of our related resources that and their status, right? 14 up and 3 are down. So by clicking this green 14 here, it now tells me that my OCI LBAAS is in here. I can see that now. It's now part of the overall related resource status. I can also, whenever I click this, it does navigate you over to the related resource page, and where you can also see this within the table. All right, so let's see. We can then click. All right, so we've now been able to check the status of that. Once again, if we click the name of our load balancer, it's going to take us back to the stack monitoring homepage, the load balancer homepage, right? But what's really cool, this is one of my favorite features for host monitoring as well, that if your host is performing poorly, we do this for you as well, where you can quickly go make changes to your host if it's an OCI compute. All right, so once you import into stack monitoring, we provide you that breadcrumb up here. And this is, if you're coming in here and you see a performance problem or whatever, and you need to take action on that load balancer, you don't have to go hit the hamburger menu, go to networking, go to load balancer, search for your load balancer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Stack monitoring makes it easy. You simply click the link, click the breadcrumb at the top, and a new tab opens where it takes you right in to that OCI networking load balance page, right? And from this page, we can easily come in here and manage that load balancer, including the shape, change routing policies, rules, sets, etc. Right? Okay. So I've gone over a lot here. But to recap, what we've done is we can identify if the load balancer is down using our related resource status widget on the EBS homepage. We can then use that navigational topology to take us to our load balancer's homepage within stack monitoring. And from there, we can review current and historical performance of that load balancer. And should we need to make changes to the configuration, we simply click a link to take us to that OCI resource homepage. And that's all without ever searching or typing. All you're doing is just leveraging the stack monitoring troubleshooting workflow. All right, let's return to the presentation. So monitoring custom apps using process monitoring. Another way to monitor custom apps is through our process monitoring features. You can create a custom application by identifying the processes that make up the application. And once you identify the processes of the application, Stack Monitoring creates a new resource instance for this app. And it starts monitoring its status and resource utilization. And you can monitor the app using its built-in homepage and also add those associations with other resources. And you can also use the OCI monitoring to then create alarm rules when the app is not running or has high resource usage, etc. So license. All right, here we go. Before you can start using these features, you must first enable the Enterprise Edition. Now, some of these licensable features can be set at the resource level, while others are applied at a compartment-wide. For example, Enterprise Edition. It can be applied to an individual resource. This means if you have 50 resources in a compartment, any number of those resources can have Enterprise License applied or Standard Edition applied. Where extensibility is applied is at the compartment level. A tenant administrator can choose whether or not to enable the extensibility feature and import those resources into Stack Monitoring. So let's take a quick look at each of those. For existing Stack Monitoring resources, the Enterprise Edition can be enabled from the licensing UI. Enterprise Edition license can be enabled on one or many resources within that compartment. And applying a license to a composite, such as PeopleSoft, will set that same license to all of its members, including the WebLogic servers, PIA, application server domain, etc. And when adding a new resource, Stack monitoring provides the ability to configure the license during the discovery workflow. To make license assignment even easier, from the license UI, Stack monitoring allows the ability to configure the license auto assignment for that compartment. And once you configure the license auto assignment, Stack monitoring will default to that license during all future resource discoveries within that compartment. To use the extensibility feature from the license UI, you must enable enterprise extensibility license at the compartment level. This allows you to start importing those OCI services such as load balancer we discussed earlier. And license metering begins for the imported resource once it's been imported. Pricing. The Stack monitoring you've known and come to love is now called Stack Monitoring Standard Edition. And the Stack Monitoring Enterprise Edition uses that same license metric as the Stack Monitoring Standard Edition, which is 10 monitored resources per hour, where a monitored resource is one host or one database cluster, etc. And for more information on pricing, see our website, oracle.com/cloud/price list, hashtag pricing observability. And Stack monitoring is listed under the application and performance monitoring. So I do want to tell you, don't forget to subscribe via RSS to our observability and management blogs. We frequently publish on topics covering everything from application performance monitoring, database monitoring and management, logging, and a complete stack monitoring and more. You can always find us on X, where everyone also says formerly known as Twitter, because you can't just mention one anymore. And also look for us in LinkedIn, where we can keep up to date, where you can keep up to date with all of our learning opportunities like this. So today we reviewed the initial set of features included in Stack Monitoring Enterprise Edition. We continue to release new features and support for new resources all the time. And you're also going to be the first to hear that as we speak, they are finalizing deployment for Apache HTTP server. So we are always coming out with new things. So please scan that code to keep up with what's new. And that QR code provides a link to our doc, our release notes, our blogs, and our live lab. And that Stack Monitoring Live Labs, if you haven't tried it, it gives you access. I will tell you, it is set towards EBS, but you can use what you learn there can be applied to nearly any application. The workflows and understanding how to set up alarms and all the different pieces. So check out our live labs and that gives you access to my demo environment where you get to go in and actually be able to kick the tires.
That concludes our session for today. Thank you, everyone.